It is time for my yearly video where I try to predict the top players in the NBA in 5 years from now. So today we're trying to predict the top 30 players in the 2030 NBA season. I have no idea if I'm still going to be doing YouTube in the year 2030. I'll be 30 years old. I will reach UNC status. And I will say this is one of the tougher lists that I've ever had to create because it's going to be a completely new era in the NBA. I feel like we're entering a transitionary period where I'm not going to have LeBron, KD, Curry, Harden, any of those legends in this ranking. So we're trying to figure out who are going to be the next faces of the NBA and are going to be the top guys. I originally planned on doing a top 25, but I'm going to have a top 30. I have a ton of honorable mentions that I want to give some love to, and then my two really big honorable mentions that we'll get into. And like always, this is just for fun, trying to predict what the NBA is going to look like in 5 years from now. Hopefully, I will be still around to react to this list because you guys really enjoyed me reacting to my 2025 list that I made back in 2020. So without further ado, let's get into this. So I have so many honorable mentions that I just wanted to give a shout out to Jalen Johnson of the Atlanta Hawks. He could definitely be a top 30 player 5 years from now. Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo of the Miami Heat. Wanted to still give some love to Domantas Sabonis over in Sacramento. Dylan Harper, the first player that we are mentioning that is not in the NBA right now, and he's not going to be the last. He's currently playing at Rutgers. Also have Zion Williamson. Just too many injury concerns with him. Jaren Jackson Jr., Karl Anthony Towns, then a couple Mavericks, Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving, and the last one is Joel Embiid. He'll be 35 years old, but I have no idea how he's going to look health-wise. And then the two big honorable mentions that I had that just missed out, they're number 32 and number 31. They're related. I have the Thompson twins. You can have a Sar or you can have a man at either spot you want. I do think they're very similar in terms of their talent right now and potential in this league. But I do think a man has had a little bit more hype to him. Maybe it's because he's playing in a bigger market in Houston or he broke out a little bit sooner. As the Sar obviously had that health scare last year as well. But I think both these players could definitely be top 30 players in the NBA in 5 years from now. So if you have them in your list, completely fine with that. So we're going to start off with number 30, and that's going to be Brandon Miller of the Charlotte Hornets. Brandon Miller will only be 27 years old in the year 2030, and he's already one of the best scoring wings in the NBA. He's only in year number 2. Brandon Miller, as a rookie, posted really good numbers. He finished behind Chet and Wemby in the Rookie of the Year race. He put up 17 points, 4 rebounds, and shot 44% from the field and 37% from 3. This year, his scoring numbers have gone up. He's averaging 21 points per game, but unfortunately, he's going to be out for the rest of the season due to a wrist injury, but his efficiency has dropped a little bit, but it's because his volume has skyrocketed. He took 14 shots a night last year, went up to 18 a night this year. He took about 6.5 threes as a rookie, up to just about 11 threes as a sophomore, because there's not many shot creators on this Hornets team. I believe that under Charles Lee, it's going to be a linear progression for Brandon Miller over time, and I think he could be a 3-level scorer at the NBA at a very good level, and when he's going to be 27, he's going to be at the start of his prime, and he's going to be one of the best scorers in the league, so he's kicking off this list at number 30. Coming in at number 29 is the first of two players that I'll be talking about that aren't even playing college basketball yet. He's a senior in high school, the son of NBA legend Carlos Boozer. Yeah, we're talking about Cameron Boozer. Boozer's a 6'10 power forward that's currently committed to Duke. He will be playing there in the 2026 season, so he's going to be around 22 years old in the year 2030. He's the 3rd ranked ESPN top 100 recruit. Currently this year playing for Columbus High School. He is averaging 22.5 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 assists a night, and I do believe he is going to be one of the best college players in the nation next year, and it's going to be a top pick in the 2025 NBA draft, which is going to put him on a good path to being a top 30 player in the league when he's just 22 years old in 2030. Let's go back to active players right now, and at number 28, I'm going to talk about someone that played for Team USA in the Olympics last summer. He's having somewhat of a down year this year, so I'm going to put him in his absolute floor here, and that is going to be Tyrese Haliburton of the Indiana Pacers. In 2030, Haliburton is going to be around 29 years old, and it did feel like we saw Tyrese Haliburton somewhat peak last year in the first half of the 2024 season because it went downhill in the second half. This year, he's just been very inconsistent at times. Last year, he was an all-star. He made All-NBA third team, and he's now averaging 18 points, which is down from 20 a night last year. He was averaging 11 assists a night, which led the NBA in 2024. That's down to 8.5 this year. The three-point shot is still the same, but he's been less efficient at the rim, and it doesn't feel like this has been the Tyrese Haliburton that we saw at the start of that 2024 season, where he was playing like a top 10 player in the NBA during that time frame. And I still believe he's going to be a very good player in this league and is always going to be around a top 30 player and always be one of the best point guards in the league. So he's going to come in at number 28. Coming in at number 27 is going to be AJ Debinsa, who's also not playing college basketball yet. He's a senior in high school right now at Utah Prep. He's committed to BYU, where he's going to be getting paid over $7 million next year in his freshman season. He is the #1 high school recruit for the 2025 class and is the early projection projection to be the #1 overall pick in what's going to be a very talented 2025 draft. This year at Utah Prep, AJ Abanta is putting up 21.5 points, 3 assists, 12.7 rebounds, and 2.5 stocks a night. He's your modern day prototypical scoring wing, and at 6'9" can handle the ball very well, and is projected to be one of the top scorers in the NBA when he eventually reaches that level. He will just be 22 years old in the year 2030, but I don't think it's crazy to predict him that he's going to be a top 30 player then, just because of his high school pedigree and what he's supposed to be as a prospect. Coming in at number 26, I have Darius Garland of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's going to be 30 years old in the year 2030, and Darius Garland is one of the more efficient scorers in the NBA at the point guard position. This year, he's reverting back to his 2022 breakout season, and he's averaging 21.5 points, 6.7 assists on the best team in the Eastern Conference, and he's doing it on Steve Nash-like efficiency. He's shooting 49.8% from the field, 43% from 3 on 7 attempts a night, and 87.5% from the free throw line. He could still end up with a 50-40-90 season at the end of the year, which is a very exclusive club to be in. He's a phenomenal ball handler. He's super twitchy and elusive, can get to the rim, and he's going to be in the middle of his prime in 2030. So I think just what we're seeing from Darius Garland this year allowed me to put him over Tyrese Halliburton if you're going to rank them point guard versus point guard in 5 years from now. Be a very talented wing scorer in the year 2030. He already is one now, and that is Franz Wagner of the Orlando Magic. He's 23 now. He'll be 28 years old in the year 2030. And Franz has dealt with injuries this year, but when he was the #1 option when Paolo Banchero was out, he was one of the best scorers, not just in the Eastern Conference, but in the NBA. This year, in 2025, in year number 4 for Franz, his numbers have skyrocketed. He's averaging 25 points per game, up from his career high last year at 19.5 per game. He's averaging 5.5 rebounds and 5 assists. I think Franz is continuing every single year to take steps as a playmaker and someone that can initiate an offense. He's averaging a steal and a half a night, and he's shooting 46% from the field, but 31% from 3. I think a lot is going to be determined on how Franz's shot is going to develop in the next 5 years, because if he becomes someone that could shoot mid to high 30% from 3 on a high volume, he could end up as a top 20 player in this league, and he could eventually score close to 30 points per game. But if his three-point shot is not going to be able to take that leap, maybe this is what Franz is going to be like for the rest of his career, which in my opinion is still a top 30 player in the league or close to it. Coming in at number 24, he's going to be 31 years old in the year 2030, another point guard, and that is going to be Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks. Who knows what team Trae Young is going to be on in the year 2030? I know there's going to be some trade conversations this upcoming offseason for Trae Young in Atlanta, but Trae is showing that he is one of the best passers in the NBA and is going to most likely win the assist crown in the year 2025. And Trae has always been a smaller guard at the NBA level. I do think his defense has gotten marginally better every single year, so I don't think his game is going to age in a scary way in 5 years from now, because his court vision isn't going anywhere. His ball handling isn't going anywhere. He's putting up 23.5 points, 11.5 assists this year, which is leading the NBA. His efficiency has been down a little bit because if you look at this Atlanta Hawks offense, there's not a lot of guys that can create their own shot, especially with Jalen Johnson out for the year. But if it's in Atlanta or a different team, I still think Trae Young is going to be a top 25 player in the league when he is 31 years old and still one of the best facilitating point guards in the NBA. Next up at 23, one spot ahead of Trae Young, I have somebody that's going to be 32 years old at the point guard position, and that's going to be De'Aaron Fox of the San Antonio Spurs. I think I just like Fox a little bit more than Trae Young in 5 years from now, because he's going to be playing with Victor Wembanyama for the next 5 years, which is only going to help out De'Aaron Fox's numbers. I think they're very close in talent right now. I could give the slight edge to Trae Young in the year 2025, but in 5 years from now, a 5-year experience with Fox and Wemby in San Antonio only makes me think that De'Aaron Fox is going to age very well in this league. Even though he relies a ton on his quickness and his speed, and he's going to be a little bit slower then, I still think he could be one of the best playmaking and scoring guards in the NBA, as he's been a 25 point per game scorer for pretty much the last 5 years. And now he's going to build a 2-man connection with Victor Wembanyama, throwing him alley-oops, working the pick and roll together. It's only going to help out Fox, and hopefully playing with Wemby can allow him to make deep playoff runs and play in big time games, something he never really got to play in Sacramento. Coming in at 22, he's going to be 28 years old in the middle of his prime. I was very close to swapping him and Franz Wagner, but I ended up giving the edge to Scotty Barnes in Toronto. Like I said, he's going to be 28 years old, but I do think Scotty is going to impact the game in a bunch of different ways. This year, Scotty's had a bunch of minor injuries, so I'm not going to really look too big into his efficiency dip. But last year, he did shoot 47.5% from the field. That is down to 44% this year. The three-point shot is always going to worry me with Scotty Barnes, just because he wasn't a good three-point shooter in high school. He was very very inconsistent at Florida State, and outside of his 2024 season, he hasn't really been a good shooter in the NBA. Maybe this is me being high on Scotty Barnes because I think he can transition into this elite point forward that has great court vision, is a very good rebounder, and score out of the post. He could score at the rim, and even if his three-point shot is never going to fully develop and be someone that could be around mid-30s from three or high 30s from three, he can impact the game in so many other ways on both ends of the floor. I like Scotty Barnes' defense a little bit more than Franz Wagner's defense, but I think they're going to be very close on what they're going to be around this range. So hopefully Matt in 5 years from now reacting to this video isn't going to be too far off on ranking Scotty Barnes at 22 compared to Franz Wagner at 25, but I definitely had a challenge ranking those two. Coming in at 21, another player from that 2021 draft class. It is going to be just loaded with talent for players playing in the middle of their prime in the year 2030. But yeah, coming in at 21, I have Alperen Şengün of the Houston Rockets. He's going to be just 27 years old, so right at the beginning of his prime. And while the Rockets haven't been a great team as of late, Şengün has been the #1 option on one of the better teams still in the Western Conference. Şengün's numbers haven't been as good as they once were last year because of the rough start he got off to this year, but he's still averaging 19 points, 10.5 rebounds, and 5 assists. He's shooting 49% from the field. His three-point shot hasn't really developed, but I think Şengün has taken strides as a rim protector and as an overall defender here in year number 4. And if his offensive ceiling is somewhat around what Domantas Sabonis is putting up right now, but I do think he's going to be a much better defender than Sabonis ever was in Indiana or Sacramento, that is going to allow Şengün to be around a top 20 player in the NBA in 2030. I got another big wild card here coming in at number 20, and that is Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies. Ja has not been playing like even a top 30 player in the NBA this year. He's coming off that major season-ending shoulder surgery he suffered after his suspension in the 2024 season. So I'm going to chalk this year up in 2025 as a rehab year for Ja Morant. We've seen this with stars in the past that after they have a major injury, they're not the same the following year, and they can revert back to what they were pre-injury 2 years from now. So I do think Ja Morant is going to have a big 2026, which is going to allow him to be around a top 20 player in the year 2030, where he's going to be 30 years old. He's going to be in the middle of his prime. And I do think he could go back to what he was, averaging around 25 points and 8 assists a night. Maybe we're not going to see him have as many high-flying dunks or try to posterize everybody that gets in his way. But I do think the blend of scoring, playmaking, and being an overall offensive engine, if it's in Memphis or a different team, then is still going to be good enough to be around a top 20 player in the league. Coming in at number 19 now, someone that's not even in the NBA right now. He is the #1 player in college. Yeah, I have Cooper Flagg, who's currently playing at Duke. He's going to be the #1 pick in the 2025 draft. He will be 23 years old in the year 2030. I have him here at number 19. Maybe I'm just diving too big into the what if on like what Cooper Flagg could potentially be in 5 years from now, but he's putting up 20 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 4 assists a night for the Duke Blue Devils this year. Since conference play started, he's had north of a 60% true shooting percentage. He's been a great free throw shooter and getting to the free throw line, which is big. He's been a very good three-point shooter. And oh yeah, he's arguably the best defensive player in the country in all of college basketball as an 18-year-old freshman. I think he can make multiple all-defensive teams in the NBA. I think he can make multiple all-NBA teams in the NBA, and I do expect him to be a two-way superstar one day, and what he can be defensively can really help him out on being a top 20 player in the NBA. I know this is a big wild card, having someone that's not even in the NBA yet be a top 20 player in the league in 5 years from now, but I'm willing to bet that on Cooper Flagg. Between Ja at 20, Cooper Flagg at 19, and my player at 18, talk about wild cards. At number 18, I have LaMelo Ball of the Charlotte Hornets. Once again, I have no idea where LaMelo Ball is going to be playing in the year 2030. He's going to be 28 years old. It's either he's going to sign a massive extension with the Charlotte Hornets, or he's going to sign or get traded to a new team. But either way, if LaMelo Ball can stay healthy, which is something that hasn't been on display since year number 2, LaMelo could be a top 20 player in the NBA because of his shot making ability, his shot creating, and his overall size in this league. LaMelo played 75 games as a sophomore, where he was an all-star, but then just 36 games in year 3, 22 games in year 4, and has played 33 games this year and has missed notable time due to the ankle injury once again. So maybe LaMelo is never going to have good enough ankles. That was a big thing with Steph Curry earlier in his career, and it ended up being all right for Steph over the course of his career. I'm hoping it's the same thing for LaMelo Ball, because he could realistically put up 27 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds a night, and he could shoot at an elite percentage from three-point range. I think the same thing goes for what I talked about with Brandon Miller at number 30 to LaMelo Ball at 18, because his efficiency is down this year with his volume skyrocketing, because not many players on the Charlotte Hornets team can create their own shots. So shot clock is winding down. LaMelo's forced to have to take a bad shot because nobody else will on this team. But I do think if LaMelo can stay healthy and can stay the course with his development, can be one of the best players in the NBA. It's just, does he want it enough? Because at 28 years old, he's going to be in the middle of his prime, and a blend of his ball handling, shot making, and overall size, he could be one of the best point guards in the NBA. Coming in at number 17, I don't know if he can ever be a number one in this league. We're seeing him struggle at times when Joel Embiid is out, but I do think Tyrese Maxey is going to be a very reliable scorer in this league. So he's coming in at number 17. He's going to be 29 years old, in the middle of his prime, and he's someone that's been available his whole career. 60 plus games as a rookie, and every single year after that. He did miss some time with a hamstring injury at the start of year number 5, but he looks great right now. He is averaging 27.5 points per game, 6 assists, 44.5% from the field, 35% from 3, and 87% from the free throw line. This is all with Paul George being banged up and disappointing this year, and Joel Embiid being injured, and I do think Maxey can excel the most when he's playing next to a true number one at times like Joel Embiid can be, but Maxey is reliable. He's going to be out there, and he's going to give you 40 minutes a night of 110% effort, and can still be one of the best scoring guards in the NBA. Coming in at number 16, I do worry about how his body is going to hold up over time. I still think he needs to put on a little bit more weight, but I got Chet Holmgren of the OKC Thunder coming in at number 16. I'm going to value two-way ability here, and I do think Chet Holmgren can be one of the best defenders that we're going to talk about in this top 30 ranking. Chet is going to be 27 years old. He's already one of the best defenders at the center position when he is healthy, and this year he had a very serious hip injury that forced him to miss a ton of time, but he was fantastic as a rookie, but he didn't play in his first year in the NBA because he suffered that Liz Frank injury before the season even started. But he's somebody that can average 20 points per game one day, 10 rebounds, couple assists a night. But the main factor about Chet, he has 3 block per game potential, and he's also been a 37% from 3 shooter in his career. He's basically Kristaps Porzingis in a way, but hopefully he could stay a little bit more healthy than Kristaps did in the early part of KP's career. Coming in at 15, I have Jalen Williams of the OKC Thunder. Yeah, the Thunder are just loaded with talent right now and are still going to be loaded with talent in 5 years from now. J-Dub is going to be 28 years old. We're in year 3, and he was an all-star as a 23-year-old. He's averaging 21 points per game this year, which is a career high, 5 assists a night. I think he's taken strides as a playmaker, 5.5 rebounds. He's also improved immensely on the defensive end of the floor as a perimeter defender and as a post defender, and he's going to be a great number 2 scoring option to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for the next 5 years. I'd like to think that J-Dub is still going to be on the Thunder in 5 years from now because he's still on his rookie contract. He's going to get that rookie max extension, which is pretty much going to time to OKC at least for the next 5 years. Coming in at 14, though, it's all about potential and what he could be, and that is Evan Mobley of the Cleveland Cavaliers, the second Cav we're going to mention, and he's going to be 28 years old in the year 2030. This year, he's posting career highs. In year number 4, Mobley's averaging 18.5 points, 9 rebounds, a steal a night, a block and a half a night, and he's shooting 38% from 3 on the highest volume of his career at 3 attempts a night. He's a first-time All-Star, but what Mobley can be as a top 5, maybe one day the best defender in the sport, not named Victor Wembanyama. I heard he has a top 3 deep point finish that he got back in year number 2. If he could space the floor, he could dribble very well for somebody that's near 7 feet tall and just be an elite two-way player. Yeah, I'm super high on that potential, and I'm banking on it that Evan Mobley is going to reach his fullest potential and his ceiling in 2030. So I have him coming in at 14. Coming in one spot ahead of Evan Mobley, we're going to have his teammate and the third Cav mention, Donovan Mitchell, who's going to be 33 years old. We're going to have a little bit of a run on the older guys in this video. Donovan Mitchell at 33, I still think he's going to be one of the best scoring guards in the league. He's averaging 24 points per game this year, which is pretty much down from his normal production at around 25 to 28 points per game, but he's allowing the other guys to flourish in Cleveland. Guys we've already talked about in this video, like Evan Mobley and Darius Garland, and I'm not going to talk about Jared Allen, but him as well. And Mitchell is okay with that. He's sacrificing his individual numbers for the overall team success, and he was an all-star as well. And I do think if Mitchell is a number 1 in the year 2030, or maybe even if he's a number 2, I'm going to bank on that he's still an extremely efficient scoring guard in this league, and I think this is around where his floor can be in 2030. Coming one spot ahead of Donovan Mitchell, another 33-year-old, and that is going to be Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics. I do wonder if we're ever going to see Jaylen Brown try to orchestrate an offense as the true number 1, or is he going to still be the number 2 to Jason Tatum in the year 2030? Either way, Jaylen Brown is still a great two-way player in this league. He is the reigning finals MVP, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has another ring to his resume in 5 years from now. He's putting up career low numbers since the 2020 season, where he's averaging 23 points this year, but is shooting 46% from the field, the lowest since his rookie year, and 32% from three, the lowest of his career. But I do think Jaylen Brown is going to be fine. He's an incredible ball handler, an incredible two-way player, and at 33, I don't think he's going to lose a step too much. Coming in at 11, I have another 33-year-old, and that is going to be Jalen Brunson of the New York Knicks. Because unlike Jaylen Brown, we've seen Jalen Brunson orchestrate an offense as a true number one and has led a team to a 2 seed that we saw in the 2024 season. Jalen Brunson may get an All-NBA first team appearance this year, where he's putting up 26 points per game for basically the 3rd straight year on elite efficiency in New York. He's been a top 20 player in the NBA since he signed with the Knicks back in that 2022 offseason. I do think out of Mitchell and Brown, there is a chance that Jalen Brunson ages the worst out of those 3, just because he is a small guard. And even though he's only an inch smaller than Donovan Mitchell, it does feel like they play completely different styles in the NBA. But I do think Brunson is still going to be someone that can average high 40% from the field, around 40% from 3, and can at least be a high-end number 2 if he's not going to be a number 1 anymore in 2030. And for my 4th straight player that's going to be 33 in 2030, it's Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns, and he's going to kickstart off the top 10. It's just that Devin Booker has played at this level for more years than Jaylen Brown, Donovan Mitchell, or Jalen Brunson have. He's pretty much been one of the best scorers in the NBA since the 2018 season, and this year has been quote-unquote a down year for Devin Booker, and he's still averaging 26 points, 7 assists, and 4 rebounds per game. He's shooting 45% from the field and 34% from 3, which is down from what Devin Booker has performed in the past. But if this is going to be a down year for him, I do think he can put up at least similar numbers in the year 2030 if he's going to be the number 1 option in Phoenix or maybe a different team in 5 years from now, and that alone is going to make him the 10th best player in the NBA. Coming in at number 9, I'm a little bit scared on how he can age, just because he's had some notable injuries in the past few years. I don't know if he's going to be with this current team. I have Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's going to be 35 years old. And I know we're seeing players age in ways we've never seen before, as LeBron James is still playing at a high level at 40, Kevin Durant and Steph Curry in their late 30s. But I'm going to be a little bit skeptical on Giannis Antetokounmpo because he's not as good of a shooter as the other guys, and he relies a lot on his strength, his toughness, and his ability to get downhill and finish at the rim. Giannis is going to post another top 5 MVP finish this year, which is going to be the 7th year in a row he's been a top 5 player in the MVP voters' eyes. He's putting up 32 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists. Arguably the best stats he's ever put up in a year in his career. He's still a great defender. He's still a dominant offensive force. This is just me being a little bit conservative and cautious on the way he's going to age with his body in the next 5 years. But you can let me know if I'm being too low on Giannis in the comments box, fans. Coming in at number 8, this player is going to be 28 years old. He is an all-NBA talent at 23, at least in my opinion he is, and that is Cade Cunningham, a former number 1 overall pick from the Detroit Pistons. Like I talked about before with J-Dub, I do believe that Cade is still going to be in Detroit in 5 years from now because his contract extension off the rookie deal is kicking in next year. And Cade, like I said, has been putting up fringe all-NBA numbers in year number 4. Thank God he's no longer being coached by Monty Williams anymore, because now he looks like a true top 20 player in the league, where he's putting up 25 points, 9 assists, 6 rebounds, 45% shooting from the field and 35% from 3, and he's carrying this Detroit Pistons offense at times, and it's been great that he's playing with productive veterans like Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris, and Malik Beasley this year, but Cade has been truly carrying this Detroit Pistons offense. He's an all-star here in year number 4 and is living up to the hype he had as the number 1 pick back in that 2021 draft. And we're gonna have a little bit of a run on number 1 overall picks. Coming in here at number 7, I have Paolo Banchero, who's going to be 27 years old. I just like him a little bit more than Cade just because of his size. As someone that's 6'10", that can handle the ball like a guard, that can get downhill, Paolo does have top 5 and even top 3 player in the league potential one day. And at 27 years old, he's going to be at the start of his prime. We saw how good he was before the abdominal injury this year, where he was looking like someone that could be a top 10 player in the league just in year number 3. And it does look like he's not playing at 100% right now, but just think what Paolo can be as a 27-year-old, as a two-way player in this league. He could be someone that can average north of 25 plus points per game. He can average around 7 to 9 rebounds, and I do think he could be a very good number 1 option in this league. I think I'm just really predicting Paolo reaching his fullest potential in this league at the age of 27, because if he is not a top 10 player in the year of 2030, I do think his career has been maybe a little bit of a disappointment just because of his expectations he had going into year number 2 and this year in year number 3. And the 3rd straight former number 1 overall pick in a row we're going to have here at number 6, and that is Anthony Edwards, who was the number 1 overall pick in the 2020 draft. He's going to be 28 years old in the year 2030, and I may have him too low. Ant has accomplished so much as a 23-year-old, where he's already made it to a conference finals as the best player on his team. He finished top 10 in MVP voting last year. He's turned into an elite three-point shooter this year. In year number 5, he's shooting 41% from 3 on 10 attempts a night. He can take over a game at any time. He's one of the best athletes in the NBA. He's a true 3-level scorer, and he plays with an energy and an intensity that not many other players can say they play with. So Ant in the middle or at the start of his prime at 28 years old with 5 more years of experience, it's hard not to put him in the top 6. And like I said, I may have him too low. So coming in at number 5, this may be a controversial take, but I think I'm just a little bit scared on maybe how his body is going to age over the next 5 years. He's still going to be a top 5 player in the league. In my opinion, he was the 3rd best player in the league going into this year. I have Luka Doncic, who is no longer going to be on the Dallas Mavericks in the year 2030. He's going to be on the LA Lakers or a different team. And I think just why Dallas traded Luka is maybe why I'm a little skeptical on keeping him into the top 3, just because Luka's going to be 30 years old. He's had notable injuries in his career, even though he's played almost 60 plus games every single year of his career. And I do think his game is going to age exceptionally well because he doesn't rely on his athleticism or his quickness or speed. And I do think when we're in the year 2030, his range is going to be either the 2nd best player in the NBA or the 5th best player in the NBA. So I'm being conservative and cautious with Luka in this prediction, and I'm going to have him at his floor as the 5th best player in the NBA. He's going to be 30 years old. He's still going to be a triple-double machine, and he may have already won a ring in LA since he got traded there at the 2025 deadline. But coming in at number 4, I have someone that's going to be 34 years old, but I do think his game is going to age exceptionally well if he still wants to play in the NBA at 34, and that is Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. I do wonder in 5 years from now, are we ever going to see Luka and Jokic be teammates in the NBA? I hope so, because it may be the best two-man game we've ever seen with their court vision, playmaking, and just being overall an elite offensive hub. But Jokic may not win MVP this year, but he's put up MVP numbers once again, the best numbers of his career, just under 30 points per game, 10 assists a night, 12.5 rebounds. He's averaging a 30-point triple-double as a 29-year-old on 57, 45, 82 splits. That is incredible. I wouldn't be surprised if Jokic has another MVP or maybe 2 more in the next 5 years and gets another ring as well. His game is going to age so well because, like Luka, he doesn't rely on his athleticism or quickness. He can beat you in so many other ways. And I do think this is the floor of Nikola Jokic in 5 years from now if he's not the best player in the NBA, which he definitely still could be at 34. So coming in at number 3, I think this could be a little bit of a hot take. I have Jason Tatum, who's going to be 31 years old, which is just insane to say because we used to make jokes on how Jason Tatum felt like he was 19 forever and everybody would say that. And he's actually going to be 31 years old, which makes me feel old. Tatum has accomplished so much in the first 8 years of his career, where he's had 3 straight All-NBA first team appearances. He just won his first ring as a 26-year-old. He's a better defender, in my opinion, than Nikola Jokic or Luka Doncic. And he's putting up 27 points, 8.5 rebounds, and 5.5 assists this year. He's shooting 36% from 3 on 10 attempts a night. He's a true elite two-way superstar, and he's going to be 31 years old. And I think he's still going to be one of the best players in the NBA in 2030. So it may be a little bit of a hot take that I have him ahead of Luka and Jokic when Tatum is going to be a 31-year-old. So coming in at number 2, I don't know if this is a little bit of recency bias because he may win MVP, and it's looking like he's going to win MVP in the 2025 season. I have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is going to be 31 years old. Once again, that could be a hot take that I'm predicting Shai to be better than Tatum, Jokic, and Luka in 5 years from now. Shai may win MVP as a 26-year-old in year number 7, where he's putting up historic numbers for a guard in the NBA. 32.5 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds this year, shooting 52% from the field, 36% from 3, and almost 90% from the free throw line, where he's getting to the free throw line around 9 times a night. And this is all for the best team in the NBA, the best defensive team in the NBA. I believe that Shai is going to have almost better team success than anybody else we're going to talk about in this video. And you add in the team success along with the offensive production and his defensive production as well. I don't think it's crazy to have Shai as the 2nd best player in the NBA in 2030. But coming in at number 1, this may be to no surprise. He's going to be 26 years old. He's already a top 5 player in the NBA in the 2025 season. So who knows where he's going to be in 5 years from now. And in my projection and my prediction, he's going to be the best player in the NBA, and that's Victor Wembanyama. Wemby, as a 21-year-old, is already putting up 24 points, 11 rebounds, 3.7 assists, and is averaging 4.9 stocks per game. 3.8 blocks, which is leading the NBA, and 1.1 steals. He's shooting 47% from the field, and he's also shooting 35% from 3 on 9 attempts a night for somebody that is 7'3". Just being able to put up those numbers as a 21 21-year-old, I can't even fathom the numbers that Wemby is going to put up as a 26-year-old. He's going to most likely win Defensive Player of the Year in year number 2 after finishing runner-up in that award in year 1. So he's most likely going to be the best defender in the NBA in 5 years from now, and he's going to be a top 5 offensive player in the NBA. Wemby might have 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 MVP awards in the year 2030, and who knows if he's going to have a ring, and he's coming in as my number 1 player in the NBA in my 2030 prediction. So that is going to be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy. That was very tough to do, so I hope you understand where I was coming from, and if you agree or disagree, please let me know down below. Thank you again to Underdog for sponsoring today's video, and don't forget to use code SROS to get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. Hope you guys are enjoying your All-Star break, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.